Welcome to the studio at African Utility Week. With me today is Knox Msebenzi from PIESA. Welcome, Knox. I believe that you wear two hats, one with PIESA and one with NECSA. Would you like to tell me a little bit about your roles at the two organizations?
Yes, I'm indeed wearing two hats. The Nuclear Industry Association is a voluntary organization. Both of them are voluntary organizations or trade associations, basically. All the nuclear operators in South Africa, essentially in anticipation for the nuclear build, but in general we already have a nuclear program in South Africa. So those are the members that form part of the PIESA group and the managing director of that. And then in addition to that, I'm also looking at the Power Institute of East and Southern Africa. That's the utilities, basically from Ethiopia all the way down to South Africa, involved in the distribution of electrical power. But we also have issues like distributed generation as well, in addition to just the classical distribution.
So everybody talks about the grid in Africa being really bad. Is it as bad as people perceive?
The issue about the grid becomes almost irrelevant in the greater scheme of things. And I'm saying this advisedly, in the sense that what is important is the electricity that gets to be supplied to the consumers, whether it is done through the traditional ways of transmitting through the grid or through distributed generation. So the issue is not so much in looking at how good is the grid, is how much electricity penetration are the people in Africa getting. That is the question that we should be answering, not because we may have to abandon the classical centralized generation, huge transmission lines, and then ultimately distribution. So we should be asking the question, are the people of Africa getting electricity? Yes or no? That's the important thing.
So are you saying that people should be investing more into mini and micro grids?
One form of development of electricity supply is not necessarily better than the other. The one form, which is centralized, requires huge investment, but you could also speak about economies of scale. So it has got its advantages. The mini and micro hydros also have got their advantages, and it's horses for courses. In places where the geography is very dispersed and the population is very scarce, it would not make sense to have huge generation power plants. It makes sense to have smaller power plants that are fit for those kind of localities. But given that we are talking about a lot of urbanization, not only on the African continent, we may be required to look at centralized generation for particular applications. If you've got a city of 10 million people, your distributed generation is not going to solve the problem. You would need massive amount of power generation, including the factories around that kind of a settlement. So each solution should be sought that suits the particular problem.
Are you saying also that distributed generation can increase the number of manufacturing and industrial companies that we have in Africa?
Any form of generation, whether it's distributed or centralized, can. The issue is the African countries should have access to electricity. How that electricity is brought to the people actually becomes irrelevant. But we are saying the new form of generation of electricity, which is called distributed generation, is opening up new ways which require less investment in huge infrastructures. So that is an opportunity that needs to be pursued very vigorously. But that does not say at the expense of the infrastructure. Like I said before, when you do have a 10 million population or 15 million population mega city, that needs to be powered. So the answer for that could be huge central generation, which ideally should not be very far away from the load, so that you minimize your transmission and sort of thing. This is where things like nuclear come in handy as well.
And what are the reforms that we need to be looking at, not only in South Africa but other African countries?
Forms of energy. we are, as some people have said, Africa has got vast amounts of energy but very little power. We've got a lot of sunlight, we've got a lot of wind as well, we've got a lot of coal, albeit the issues around clean energy and carbon emissions. I would say that the approach that the South African government has taken of having a mixed bag, a basket of energies, nuclear, wind, solar, hydro, where it's applicable, because we've got very little water in South Africa. All these forms of energy should be looked at. And I still believe that even with the carbon, with the coal, there's such a thing as clean coal. We should be looking at that. One of the forms of energy that we're not looking at very well, unfortunately, which has been developed, bedeviled internationally, is nuclear. And I believe it has got a lot of potential for the African continent. We should look at that. So the rest of the continent should actually follow suit in terms of what South Africa is doing, and having a mixed bag of energies to generate power.
And South Africa has almost committed to an extra 9,600 megawatts of nuclear. When do you think that is actually going to happen?
I think a lot of the groundwork has been done. From where we stand as the Nuclear Industry Association, the vendor parades was the last engagement that the government made with the various vendors from the different countries. So as far as we understand, everything has been done. Perhaps the details of the procurement processes need to be ironed out, but those are processes that we are not privy to. That's what the government is doing, but we are waiting in anticipation, and we are ready to kick the process off.
And lastly, renewable energies has come to the fore quite strongly recently. Do you think this is going to impact on our coal and nuclear?
Actually not, for the simple fact that the two energies sources are complementary. They're not competing. It's not one versus the other. It is not an either-or situation. The approach that our government has taken of an energy mix, there is an allocation for nuclear, there is an allocation for renewables. So in that case, it's properly planned. It's not, we need so much electricity, you can either have it from nuclear or you can have it from renewables. In which case, if you go all the way for nuclear, you deprive renewables of the opportunity for generation, or vice versa. But we're not taking that approach. We have got an integrated approach where we are saying through a sober process of argument and rational thinking, we've come to the allocation of so much for nuclear, 9.6, and in fact double the amount, 17.8 for renewables. So there is a lot for everybody, for the both types of technology. So each one of them is not going to knock out the other one. Because in any case, let's face it, renewables are not at this point in time ideal for base load, because we do not have the technology yet for storage. So we would battle obviously at night, and we would battle when the wind is not blowing. But that is not to say these renewables do not have their own place. I'll be quite happy to know that there is a hospital that runs during the day very efficiently when the sun is shining or when the wind is blowing, especially in places where you cannot get the grid anywhere. Any form of energy, any form of electricity, no matter how unreliable, is better than no electricity at all. But we cannot really play off one technology against the other. Both of them I think they're complementary if they're required.
Thank you so much. And thank you for watching.